going to call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the December City Council regular meeting. Please rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have the roll call, please, Ms. McKenzie.
Councilmember Bob?
Here.
Here. Councilmember DeGree? Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Marshall?
Here. Okay, and that takes us to ceremonial items, selection of new mayor and vice mayor. Is this open to public comment in the whole, just like any other item of business, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I assumed. Do we have anybody?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jim West as the mayor for the year 2018.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Is that appropriate?
Is that appropriate?
Okay. Do we have any discussion? Or not, it's allowed, I guess, right? Do we have any discussion? Do we have any public comment? Okay. I think we'll call the question then.
Okay.
Please.
Councilmember Bob?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeGree?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
Okay. All members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the mayor passes unanimously.
Perfect. It's all yours, Jim.
Thank you.
So the mayor doesn't get one of those little doobers on the end of it. This is a period for public comment. You can comment on anything that is not on the agenda.
Actually,
Oh, God, I'm sorry. I got so heady about the whole thing.
Or ahead of yourself.
Ahead of myself. You go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint John Freeman as the vice mayor for 2018.
I'll second that.
Anything from the public on that? All right, I think we'll have a call to question.
Okay. Councilmember Bob?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Councilmember DeGree?
Yes.
Vice Mayor West?
Yes.
Mayor Marshall?
Actually,
Yeah.
aye.
Just Councilmember, right?
Yes.
Old habits are hard to break. Sometimes.
So, all members of the council
Thank
being
you.
present, the motion as stated by the mayor passes unanimously.
All right.
In charge of vice.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
in charge of vice?
Yeah. Okay, we're going to public comment. This is a period in the meeting where you can say anything about things that are not on the agenda. You get 3 minutes, and we can't respond to any of that, but we can agendize it. We can follow up with questions about it, but we cannot take any action because it has not been agendized. Do we have any cards?
Yes, we have one card, Bob.
Upgrade 160 Lang. Congratulations, Mayor.
Thank you.
I think I commented on this last year, and so we had this double R race in town on Saturday. Do you guys know what streets were closed? Do you guys know? Yeah, I don't either, but First Street was closed, Second Street was closed, Third Street was closed, and Fourth Street was closed. Did they have permission to close all 4 streets? They had blocks on Washington Street. They had blocks, you couldn't get up to First Street. They weren't even running the race on that portion of First Street. We have to control what streets they're authorized to block off. And they can't be blocking off every single street in town. You know, I think they're just running the race up here on 2nd Street and maybe getting up on the 1st Street way down after you get past Monterey. And I almost got in confrontation. I was trying to get up to 1st Street to pick up the Santa's chair to get it back down to the bakery for the festival going on Sunday, and I almost couldn't get through. I had to argue with people just to get up there. So I just wondered, what streets are we authorizing them to block off? It's just crazy. And then, you said, and I'm not sure about this, I was just noticing today they're putting up new sound walls on the new development. It's going out towards Hollister on the highway. Is that sound wall going to match our other sound walls in town?
It's up to Councilor.
No, I think that's a question to the planning commission.
Yeah, I don't know.
They constructed are those that were approved by the planning commission and they're the missions.
Are they commission style? Well, they don't look like it now. Hopefully they'll look like commission style when they're done.
Does anybody, who ran that race?
I don't know.
It's an out-of-town, there's no one in town that I think is involved in it. It's all out of town.
For the record, I had the exact same problem as Bob did on Saturday. I was trying to go across town and it was tough.
And I think they did it last year too, and I think I mentioned it last year. So someone needs to police that.
Is that something we should agenda is for a future meeting?
Mayor, members of the council, when I learned of this race, I said, who approved that? And I was advised the council had at an earlier meeting. And I do not tonight know which streets precisely they had asked to be closed and which you therefore approved in the permit. But my view is that we need to, it would be helpful to do a better job of getting applications clear with conditions set forth and enforceable. So the whole special event permit process, I think, is one that should be reviewed. Things like to what extent do we inform adjacent property owners and businesses? Many of the businesses in town want to have special events, but they want to make sure that they're familiar with them and that they aren't closing off the wrong streets, the streets that which they're doing business. So if you had a future agenda item, it would possibly be to say this is a project that city management ought to take on to try to organize better our whole special event process.
I hesitate to use the word project because of the sequel.
But I would,
But I think you're right, yeah.
this one was particularly poorly planned to run. There's one, I believe, in the middle of October, or possibly late October, where they actually had police cars out and you couldn't cross the road, and they had big barricades and you couldn't cross the road. There was little or none of that, and you could cross the road and possibly run over a runner, and so they just didn't have enough of what I call blocking off barricades to really do an effective job of showing A, where they're going to run, and B, where we shouldn't drive our cars, And Ed's right, we should, or Bob too, we should restrict it to only first and second, or second and third, and at least leave fourth or some other street to get around on,
It would be interesting to see the permit that was issued for them, because typically, we look at them and they show the streets that they're going to block, or they're going to run.
I think we'll agenda.
We'll get a copy of it
Yeah.
for you.
There's another public comment.
All right.
Julie Cosio?
Jolene Cosio, 181 Lane. When I left the house, only first and second were blocked off, which can still create issues, but that's been the traditional route that we've used for running events, and you might want to pay special attention to the running event that will be run in January that's on your agenda tonight, because I think that is probably the same basic route as was used this weekend. In the past, at least, that's what we've done. We've asked, this one always wanted to close off 3rd Street, and we always told them no when I was on council, and that they had to keep it to 1st and 2nd. And it still creates issues, but not anything like it would create if they closed 3rd and 4th. So they must have closed them later for a later race or something, because when I left the house, those streets were not closed, just 1st and 2nd. So,
Third was closed at the church at 9 o'clock.
okay.
We had barriers on Washington, Washington and 4th, They're putting a barrier down by Windmill at one point. Well,
Yeah.
it comes all over town.
And it's not just the street closures that are at issue, because a lot of times these event people do try to close off more than they were approved. So a lot of it is monitoring what they're doing, not just approving or not approving the route. Somebody needs to monitor whether or not, if you want to have a city works person on duty telling them, no, that's not what's supposed to be closed, or somebody out there, because we have had issues with various events in the past, as I'm sure you're all aware.
Thank you. So we will agendize this, talk about monitoring, talk about availability. Any other cards? Anyone else? All right, public comment. Consent items.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Is there any comment on any of the consent items?
Possibly C, we might want
The
to,
comment I just made, to take a good hard look at the
Yeah.
race that's on.
that would be C.
Yep.
Do we want to yank that out of the consent item and talk about it later, or?
I think if we could agendize this,
Okay. Just,
because I really don't have a handle on it, in all honesty.
The challenge
This
at
map
this
that they
point,
supply shows,
yeah, if we don't approve it, the event's not happening. I mean, we're just too close to the event to not.
And this is the one that Bill Tiffany does, right?
Correct.
So
And I don't have a problem with Mission 10.
Right,
If
yeah.
they just close this street
Yeah.
up here and out of, it's run really good. It's just this other event, and you go crazy with their cones all over town.
Okay. All right, we have a question, I missed it. You want a
Public comment or the resolution?
resolution?
The resolution is 38.
what's
We have a
that?
motion? We have a motion, we have a second.
Have a motion.
We have a
second.
second.
All right, Councilmember Bach,
Yes.
Councilmember Maturana,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVries. Yes. Councilmember Freeman,
yes.
and Mayor West.
Yes. All right, presentations, informational items and reports. A. San Benito County Health Foundation Service Area Compensation Grant Application.
Okay, I sent a couple emails to them and never received a response, so you could probably skip over that one. For them to answer any questions about the letter of support.
Are we going to send a letter?
Not if they weren't here to answer questions or explain the purpose of the letter.
Okay. Treasurer's report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, our treasurer, Chuck Geiger, is on vacation for a few days. He typically presents this report to you. I wanted to just make a general comment about the state of the city's finances, which are good. Our fund balances are greater than had been anticipated when you adopted the budget last summer. We've just had the auditors in last week, and they will be presenting their audit report to you at the next council meeting in January. The format of this report, I'd appreciate feedback from the council now or individually as to how helpful it is to you. It presents the current budget period as compared to the prior budget period as if those two were comparable. So through a lot of analysis of how this period, these 5 months are greater or lesser than the 5-month period of the preceding year. But the timing of payments, the timing of revenues are such that that's not really an appropriate comparison in my mind. It is appropriate to compare current results against the adopted budget or the current results against last year's total results. But this format is a little odd to me, but perhaps it's useful to the council, and I'd just appreciate feedback now or later individually as to whether it's useful, because we're prepared to make changes to make it useful to you. That's the purpose of the report.
I'd love to see it be a little more meaningful.
Do you have any recommendations in mind for format that you've seen that's more effective?
I've seen other formats that are more effective, but again, from the perspective of city management presenting to the policy board, I have an objective in mind. The policy board itself may have some interest in what kind of information you want to see.
Yeah, I always wanted to figure out where we're going, how, what's the status of it.
Are we on track or not?
Yeah,
That's really
yeah.
the question.
Right, and I want to know.
Well, and what anticipated projects are coming up that are happening or not happening because of, issues with I think that's been an ongoing issue for the city for a long time. We've budgeted for a number of expenses that have never been undertaken, projects that have never been undertaken because we're having a short-term shortfall, and then they've never been revisited.
So somewhat related to this monthly report, I've previously advised you that at the next council meeting on January the 16th, we'll have what we're calling the mid-year budget review. And this is going to be a comprehensive look at the budget against the actual beginning fund balance, now that it's been audited, against our 6-month history to see whether we need to make any revisions in spending or revenue estimates, and frankly to provide for appropriations for some projects that were just listed but not clearly appropriated, and we want to get that sorted out, and there'll be a narrative that will perhaps answer the question that Councilmember Marcarano raised.
That's a good idea.
This may be simplistic, but I've always read this first part of the report and then tried to figure out, my checkbook at home, I put an entry in and I subtract or add whatever it is, and I cannot figure out from this exactly where we stand. Do we have $100 in the bank, or do we have $1 million in the bank? I don't know. I can't figure it out from this one. And I probably should have said something several years ago, but...
I thought it was just stupid. Well, we're looking at very small segments, 5 months to 5 months. It really doesn't tell me where we're going.
Sounds like we'd love to see some suggestions.
Yes. John?
Yeah, I agree. I think it can be better, and I'll think about it some more and go back to the budgets I ran for certain organizations and maybe make a suggestion privately to the city manager.
Do we open this to the public?
Well, we haven't heard the report. Oh. Or have we?
I have a couple of questions on the warrant.
Okay. On the warrant?
What did Bracewell not get their bills in? It looks like we paid $26,000 to Bracewell in a month. I presume that covers 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the 27th and again on the...
On the 15th, yeah, 12,000.
Yeah.
And 14,
Yeah.
makes 26.
So we have two kinds of expenses with Bracewell. One is for the operation of the wastewater treatment plant, and the second is to provide water quality testing and operations of the water system.
Okay. Because it doesn't show up twice every warrant list, but...
Okay.
And then the other question I had is West Tech. What is that? It's on the last page, 6 from the bottom, 2,300.
I'm going to ask Ms. Pates whether she knows offhand. It's not on, I had notes on the likely questions on Stump the Manager.
Yeah,
I
Chris
didn't
can
know
let you.
that one.
Chris is in the audience.
So he's raising his hand. I think it's him.
He's responsible for that.
It's your fault.
Yeah, it's my fault. That's for...
Would you come to the podium?
Oh, yeah. I'm Chris from Bracewell, and that's for there's a screen up the influent to the headworks to the wastewater treatment plant. Screens out all the solids, and the gearbox on that failed.
Oh,
So that's a new gearbox.
See, I just question things that I don't recognize.
That's understandable.
And then the last one is Green Line for $7,700.
That one I know something about. So that's actually, Green Line is a company that provides a service to dispose of water that was on the Copperleaf site. They had broken a water main, and so that needed to be repaired, and they had to dispose of the water in accordance with a permit. This is all reimbursable by Copperleaf Eden Bridge Homes.
Okay. Fine.
Is there a way we could
I like reimbursables.
indicate on this list if it's a pass-through? Because we're not responsible for it.
We'll take another column.
Well, just put an asterisk by it or something like that.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, any from the public have anything on the treasurer's report? Do we have any comments? No. Do we need to take an action on this? All right. We have a motion?
Motion approved?
There's no action?
No. Receiving the final thing.
Sorry, I just,
You're not in the wrong way,
I did
Donna.
not the wrong way.
Yeah.
I meant
Do not
this.
confuse the two. There's a violation there. Next one, sheriff's report. We don't have a sheriff's report.
That was last month.
That was last month. All right, level 1 security report. We have one of those.
Oh, sorry, we have a public comment for the sheriff's report.
Okay. I apologize.
Rachel Ponce. I just wanted to say that I frequent the cemetery, and from last month to this month, the sheriff is still hanging out in the vicinity of the cemetery and the FW. So I think that that guy, that last sheriff that spoke at length, needs to be reminded of that. And the other thing, and in all fairness to the sheriff, I did see them cite someone on 4th Street, so
I saw
that's
that
a
also.
start, okay?
They were parked at the intersection of Washington and...
I have a concern that I've, talked to you guys about before. The total disregard in the city of our traffic. At the Christmas parade, I was watching the parade at Washington and 3rd, right by Jardines. There were 4 cars parked on 3rd Street before the parade was going to start. The parade, I think, was going to start at 6. It was 5:30, and those cars were parked there. One car was parked in front of Daisy's, and that left. There was another car parked over by Pat Garrett's place, and there were 2 more down on 3rd Street towards the Mission Cafe. At one point, the sheriff went down 3rd Street by himself in the car, and then he came back with a tow truck behind him. But I didn't see him, or no cars were towed away. Then, during the parade, and you know that there are kids walking in the parade, there's kids sitting on the curb, and this woman is driving her car during the parade down 3rd Street. Against the...
In the opposite direction of the parade.
Against the parade. Something definitely has to be done. I mean, the sheriff has to be around. They have to do their job. So we don't pay them a lot, but we still pay them. And so they need to step up their game. Thank you.
Rachel, you couldn't believe it. I was in the parade in my car, and I saw those headlights coming, and I said, what? And she just drove right on by. She wasn't speeding, she just drove right on by. I don't know where she went, but...
Well, some of the kids from San Juan School were in the parade, and the adults had to make sure that the kids weren't going to get run over.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw that woman pulling out. I was after you in the parade. Thank you, Rachel. Any other speak? Oh,
Next one. Not this one.
no?
No.
Okay. Then we go to level 1 security.
It was on the computer, but we didn't get a printout.
You didn't get a printout?
I didn't get one.
It's in the packet.
Yeah. All right. Any questions on that? No, sir. Questions? John? No? Any questions from the audience on the first? Okay.
Jolene Cosio, 181 Lang. I thought I remembered from the previous city manager that level 1 security would be able to issue parking tickets, and also anyone assigned by the city, be it the city manager himself or anyone else so assigned, can issue parking tickets. Now, I understand it requires a sheriff to issue moving violations. Since we don't have police force, the sheriffs do that. But when I read through the level 1 security report and saw all these things that they saw and reported a few of them to the sheriffs, and mostly they just, saw this, did nothing, saw that, did nothing. Can't we issue parking tickets in this city? Because that would help the traffic situation a lot, it seems to me. I came in and filled out a report on something I've mentioned a bunch of times, but I don't think I've ever actually filled out a complaint form until yesterday. And the city manager quickly responded to me, went over and looked at the site I was talking about, which is right there where San Antonio comes on to McClellan, and there's no parking signs, but people at those apartments park there all the time, especially in the evenings and weekends. And nobody ever seems to ticket them, so they continue to do it. Now, if the sheriff isn't going to bother to stop and issue tickets, can't we as a city take care of that ourselves with level 1 security, or having somebody else in the city assigned to do it?
I'm going to ask the city manager about that. Can we or can we not do that?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, happy to look into it and report back to you.
Thank you.
Well, I know that Roger at various times did issue tickets.
So he did?
There was a car up on First Street parked in the red zone forever, and a couple of towaways, but I don't know exactly what the protocol is for it.
So you do have administrative citation power, the staff does, through your city code. And in order to do this, you would have to delegate this authority to level 1. You'd have to renegotiate the contract and make sure that they were willing to do that, because that's not what they're doing under the contract. We would have to pass it through our insurance provider to make sure they were okay with that, and then the council would have to take formal action to delegate authority to that body to issue parking tickets.
Well, at one time, wasn't Nick in Public Works appointed the code enforcement officer?
Yes.
Wouldn't that fall in there?
Yes, the city could issue it. The issue is whether level 1 security can issue parking tickets.
They can be designated to do so, we've just not done that. But we need...
You mean level 1?
Correct.
But Nick has been designated to do it.
Yes,
my
code
understanding.
enforcement can issue administrative citations under your city code.
So is that something we should negotiate with Nick to have him out an hour or two a day giving out traffic tickets? In other larger cities, there's, excuse me for being old-time and maybe sexist, but there used to be what was called meter maids, and they'd run down those little electric go-karts and mark your tire, and if you were still there on their second trip back 2 hours later, you got a ticket, and
They still do that in Hollister.
okay.
Chris and I got a ticket.
I'm sorry, but it might be effective in combating this problem we're facing.
Certainly.
But then we have to assign somebody, we have to designate that. That's
I would suggest that we take it up with the new city manager.
all right.
agendize it. I'm all in favor, but I think we need to agendize it and have a discussion.
All right.
That would be as a future.
Fire report.
I think we have yet to, we do need to discuss the level 1 contract too. I think that's on your radar, isn't it?
Level 1 has a contract with the city that is extended. It was for a 1-year period, or a limited period through the year, but was extended by virtue of some contract language that said if you adopt it in the budget, it will be extended.
Gotcha.
For me, there are lots of provisions in that contract I would like to, quote, clean up. Level 1 itself, I would like the council to consider a potential increase, but they haven't given me all the information that I need to present that to you, so that's down the road.
How far down the road?
Depending on how, since it's money, their money, as soon as they give me the information, I can analyze it, I'll bring it to you. Until then, I guess they're not that interested.
I don't have the level 1 report, but there was some mention in there of a car parked somewhere for weeks on end, or...
I think there was somewhere.
That's something, you notice that, send Nick out there and have him tag it.
Yeah.
And then 72 hours later, throw it away.
I think the level 1 guys make sense. There's some hurdles to get over to empower them. One of the questions is that, does Nick works for the city manager, doesn't work for us, so but if that's what we want,
Everybody works for the city manager.
That's right.
We only have 1 employee.
That's right.
But
That's right, I'm sorry, Dave.
while I'm in complete agreement of Nick works as the city manager, what I was thinking is that since level 1 really only works at night, a lot of our parking problems are during the day, so we might want to have somebody like Nick to do it during the day.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just think we should agendize it and discuss it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do we need an action on this? Nod your head the correct way, honey.
I indicated I'd bring back a report to you.
All right. Okay. And fire chief report. We do not have one, I believe.
Fire chief was deployed, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yes. He's in the Southern California reserves.
Me down south?
No, I think he was deployed with the military.
I thought he went to Florida with the hurricane situation.
He did. So I'm not sure what his status is at this point. Oh, he is. Oh, good.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to skip the fire chief report. Any questions on that? Anything from the community? Good. Library report. I know we have one. I couldn't find it.
It's right here.
Any questions on the library report?
No.
Anything from the community on the library report? All right. We don't need an action on that. Admin report.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I've simply provided you a partial list, no doubt, of the things we've been working on since the last council meeting. If you have any questions about any of the items, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Any questions from the audience on that? All right, thank you. Next item, Public Works report. And we want to say that any questions on that?
No. Thank you.
All right. Any questions from the public on the Public Works report? All right. Going on to the monthly construction progress report. Item I.
No questions.
John?
Straightforward. I only have a small joke. I was going to wonder if they're going to count the auger as extra rebar for the concrete or something.
No, I think the auger came out of my pay.
Oh.
All right. Any questions from the public on that? Good.
That was a pretty nice report.
It is a good report. All right, now we go to reports on council members' committees, subcommittees. John, do you have something?
No, the Water Resources Board did not meet this month. Sean likes to take the month of December off. And the last AMBAG meeting was the same time as a workshop we had on the cannabis issue, so I attended that instead of the AMBAG, so I got nothing.
Tony?
I think I reported on call before, nothing new. We're still going to pursue that sales tax initiative, but other than that, that's about it.
Dan? Good?
Yeah, the intergovernmental, I don't think there was anything concerning the city of San Juan Bautista. There's it sounds like there's about 3 different groups now working or interested in trying to go out for funding for this new library project. So that sounds like it's maybe going to get complicated for the county and city of Hollister. And then the fire committee, we're still waiting on the consultant's report, the final draft or final report from the consultants on the considering a joint powers agreement or something like that to take over fire protection, potentially countywide.
Yeah, when did we get to that? Let's see. And the LAFCO did not meet. So we're now on, where are we at?
Okay.
K. Strategic Plan Committee.
Are you going to change any of these?
Where, is that what we get, did I pass it over?
Yeah, you assign us to these different...
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, John, are you still on the commission, the council?
Yes.
Commissions? Can I speak to that for a second?
You can speak to anything you want, Wayne.
Thanks. I just didn't want to be out of order. One of the, I know that you have an opportunity, and I hope you have appointed a member to be on the Seniors Council, the Area Agency on Aging. I haven't heard a lot of conversation about participation in that. That's a really important body to be involved with because it helps set policy on the elderly population in our Santa Cruz and San Diego counties. And it also has a lot to do with the way money is allocated to senior programs in our county. I think it's really important that you pay attention to that body, and I hope that you have actually appointed someone to be a member of the Seniors Council and represent San Juan Bautista on that important body.
I think it was you.
Yeah, but
Wayne?
they only had one meeting in Hollister, and I don't know where, they never notified me where the meetings are going to be.
Wayne, do you think you could maybe get with Tony and help? Because we've just got no information. We don't know what it is. We don't know who it is. We don't know what our responsibilities are.
Yeah.
We just sort of got this letter that generically said, hey, you need to appoint somebody. And
I'd be happy to work with the council on that.
Thank you.
Retired today as the Ombudsman Program Coordinator for San Benito and Santa Cruz counties. This is a really important agency because it's all the money for aging elderly programs comes through the AAA and then gets dispersed out. San Diego County needs to be sitting at the table when those discussions are happening, and San Juan Bautista particularly needs to be sitting at the table so that we're represented too.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to call them.
Thank you. Yeah, they've never notified me. I went to one meeting in Hollister, and that was it.
Okay. Now we'll do the Strategic Plan Committee report.
Well, we met last week and we discussed Mostly, we went back to our kind of favorites, parks and recreation issues, and the council may or may not know, but the Fish and Wildlife Department granted to a 501c3 organization here in San Juan $19,000, so PG&E matched it with $1,000. So by simple math makes that $20,000 to clean up the area of the creek next to the school. Anyway, and clean it up and possibly put in connecting trail to the Mission Park in the very rear. So it's a long-term big thing. It's not going to be solved or done tomorrow or next month. But they're starting to work on it again. The other thing they talked about was the emergency services plan that we've had since Shauna looked at it, and I think it was 2004 or 2005, and they're going to be recommending that we review it and update it, and maybe there's several people on that committee who are willing to do that. They have experience in doing that. One lady worked for Gavilan College in that very department, so she's really up to speed on it.
Any comment on any of that?
No, sir.
Any comment from the audience on any of that?
Hi, good evening. My name is Mandisa Snowdy, and I'm on the Strategic Planning Committee on the subcommittee for Arts, Culture, Recreation, and Wellness. We had a meeting last night, and we did talk about the project that John mentioned. The amount is $17,950. That's only for restoration, and then PG&E added $1,000 for beautification for the front of the park. And it was found that the creek has a lot of silt, and so $18,000 isn't going to be enough to clean up and to do the actual restoration of the creek. So considering moving the walking trail project and pollinator project and planting indigenous trees on the other side of the park, and that might lead to an opportunity working with the Mission and the State Park if there is going to be a walking trail that goes behind. The other question was about, there were two topics that I just really, maybe I missed the City Council meeting, but about the Parks Committee, or there was a sign-up sheet from Vertigo where there were people's names and lots of involvement from the community, and from my understanding attending the meeting, that was kicked back to the strategic plan and the specific subcommittee to discuss, and we don't really know what it, I would just like what the direction is, because I think I missed it. From the City Council for the strategic plan regarding the Parks Committee or Commission. Are we supposed to have a meeting? Do you want us to call the people? What, like, just any clarity in that would be helpful. And then also conversations about the dog park, I think, were brought up. And I don't know if that also if that just is encompassed in a bigger conversation about the Parks Commission or Committee in general. But just for myself personally, I would appreciate any type of direction on what the council had intended with bringing that topic back, so that we could agendize it and get something done if that's what we need. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ben, do you have any comment on that?
No. I thought we were looking for some recommendations, I think, from the strategic plan committee in terms of creation of, and who might be, and what the scope of what the purpose and scope might be. That's my recollection, but that's not always true.
I thought we were also going to make sure that there wasn't a duplication of not services, but efforts.
Sure.
And to try and get it a little more coordinated. As it stands now, it's not very, it's amorphous, let's just put it that way.
Sure. Okay. Sounds like we need to talk about it some more.
Yeah.
Yes, we need something from the strategic plan, from the subcommittee. Do you guys have an idea? Do you guys have
we met last night, and we have conversations about the parks, but no real clear direction of what it was basically news to us, like, oh, the city council wants us to make a recommendation. When did that happen? We didn't really know that, and because I attended the meeting, I was the one relaying that information to the chair of that subcommittee. So what we could do, I mean, we discussed options of, do we need to have another subcommittee for parks, or does this subcommittee host a meeting specifically only about parks? You know, it's like arts, culture, wellness, and recreation. We can, if you wanted, maybe separate that out from the subcommittee and to make it in its own, or because basically our subcommittee does cover recreation, but we don't really know what the council's needing for us to focus on, specifically regarding the parks.
Yeah, and I can understand, I was on the County Parks Commission when it formed. Valerie Eglin is doing that project now. It's kind of, we just threw you a lot of rope. Do what you want with it.
Okay.
You know, you might talk to her, you might go to those meetings. I'll be glad to talk to you about what we did on the county level when we first started that.
And does anyone know where the sign-up sheet from Vertigo, where the contacts are?
Anna has it. Is she on your committee?
Who?
Anna Garcia?
I haven't. She hasn't been there for a couple of meetings, so maybe it would be helpful if you could email that to either Shauna or to Jennifer Colby, who's the chair of this subcommittee. I'm just a member, but I'm more local than she is.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it'd be maybe myself and Valerie Eglin, who's now the chair of the County Parks and Rec Commission, sit down and talk with you about some of the options that you have.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that will be helpful. I will then, I guess, facilitate an email conversation with us and tie in Jennifer.
Yeah.
And then anyone from staff or from that Parks Commission, it would be really helpful to get any information about who to contact or who was
Yeah, I went through that all 8 years ago, and my memory is still somewhat good.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I have public comment on this section 2. I was at the strategic plan committee meeting also. I wasn't aware of the subcommittee meeting because I'm the one that brought it up to the strategic plan that they were now charged with handling the Parks Commission because they weren't aware of it. And my understanding was that Shauna was going to agendize it for the next strategic plan meeting to discuss it at the next meeting. So I'm not sure what's going on with this subcommittee. And if the strategic plan is having subcommittee, I wish they'd post those meetings so if someone was interested in the Park Commission, we'd know about it so we could attend those meetings.
Good feedback.
What?
Yeah, good idea.
That's on a different issue, but might I suggest, rather than going to a subcommittee meeting, if you and Valerie could attend the next strategic plan committee meeting, it would be very useful. Those meetings are held on the first Thursday of the month here at 6:30. And I think that would be very helpful. I'm pretty sure that it was going to be on the agenda, was it not?
Yeah.
So it would be on the agenda, so if you guys came and spoke to
I
them.
will talk with
it would be
Valerie
very useful.
and we will show up at the next meeting.
Wonderful, thank
That's
you.
what I want, another meeting.
Okay, you did.
I didn't see you back there, Valerie. I'm sorry we got you involved in this. The next thing, item 6, this is the City Council boards and committee membership responsibilities. I like what it is. Is anybody unhappy with the board that they're on and want to get off of it? John, are you happy with what you got?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
You're fine? Okay. Chris, you fine? All right, then that's going to stay the same. All right. Next one is B. This is a traffic calming study. Any questions on this?
Staff report?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, at the last council meeting, you asked us to have our city engineer, Harris Consultants, get a proposal to do a traffic study, speed and calming study on 4th Street. This proposal before you does that. It's important that we get good reading of data on actual speeds by time of day, day of week, so that will help inform the recommendations that might be generated by the study. At a recent Planning Commission, a member of the commission suggested that he had heard from business people on 3rd Street that there was also speeding on 3rd Street, and so we asked what would it take to get additional speed data on 3rd Street, and that's included in this proposal. So we'd ask you to appropriate $13,500 from the general fund for the purpose of conducting this study. You will receive the recommendations in the spring in time for consideration in the annual budget as to whether any investments need to be made as a result of the traffic calming study.
So the $13,500 is for both 4th and 3rd?
Yes. Okay. An additional, it's for speed study on 4th and recommendations for traffic calming on 4th.
Okay.
Speed study on 3rd. The options for traffic calming on 3rd in the historic district are significantly narrower than they're available on 4th Street. So traffic on both streets, traffic speed on both streets, traffic calming recommendations on 4th Street. And if there were other streets that you wanted to get traffic speed data on, it's $500 a location. And if for any particular street segment you want to get 2 or 3 reads, 2 or 3 locations.
On 4th Street, I'm so tired of...
You want us to do your house?
Yeah. My wife actually sits out there with a clipboard and watches that radar trailer and lets down the speed.
Well, I never thought that living on Franklin would be that much of a benefit. Franklin is 30 feet wide. You put a parked car on each side, you've got a 1-lane road. And it doesn't say 1 lane, so it's kind of like who blinks first. Chris, do you have anything?
I don't.
Okay. Any from the community have anything to say on this? Yes, I'm sorry. No? Okay. We need an action. We need a motion.
I would move that we approve the appropriation of $13,500 from the general fund and authorize a traffic calming study on 4th Street and 3rd Street.
You have a second? Any discussion? We'll have a vote now.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Martorano?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Yes.
Mayor West?
Yep.
All members of the council being present and not seated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you. Water System Compliance Action Plan.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I wanted to bring the council and the community up to date on our strategy to address very significant water and wastewater concerns in San Juan Bautista. These issues are significant, and we are subject to various compliance orders from various agencies of the state of California. First, we're under an order from the state of California to provide water quality that meets the state and federal water quality standards with respect to nitrates. We currently do not meet that. And secondly, to provide to the state assurances that we have a reliable and robust water system, sufficient that if one of our wells is out of commission for any reason, a second or third and combined are sufficient to meet the average daily demand of our community. We do not yet have that. So the issues are very significant. They're significant to the future of our community and to the delivery of healthy, safe water for our customers. The good news is we now have a plan that we've submitted to the state. We can see light at the end of the tunnel on both the nitrate issue and the robust reliability of our water system. With respect to nitrates, the solution is going to be to abandon well number 2, which, as shown in the data that's included in your report, is the major source of the nitrate contamination in the water supply. If we abandon well number 2 and replace it, which is located on San Juan Hollister Road, in the middle of what is now the Copper Ridge subdivision, that will be replaced by a new well, which we're designating well number 5. Copper Leaf, did I say Copper Ridge? Apologize. The Eden Bridge development known as Copper Leaf. That will be replaced with well number 5 on a site that they are required to provide and dedicate as part of the conditions of approval for their subdivision. We are well along the way toward having that well brought online. It meets the state and federal water quality standards. It will have sufficient capacity to assist us, but not alone, solve the robust, reliable water system requirement. In some detailed schedules that we have given to the state, essentially we've said that well can be online in the spring of 2018. The second solution to the water quality and supply issue is the development of a new well, which we've designated well number 6, a little further down the road on San Juan Hollister Road, a current agricultural well owned by Koch Farms. We propose to acquire that well and modify it so it can be brought into the city's municipal water supply system. We have tested it. It has sufficient quality and quantity so that when that well comes on in combination with well number 5, we will have met the compliance order from the state of California with respect to our water supply system. We believe we can get that well online by late summer, but no later than October of 2018. To accomplish that, we need to acquire the site, acquire the well, and in the report we've outlined a series of business terms that we have reached with the owner of the well and site, Mr. Dale Koch, on behalf of Koch Farms. And I wanted to just briefly talk about those a little bit because it's a complicated deal. Significant complicated problems. The solutions are also complicated. So to acquire this well, we propose to trade land with Mr. Koch so that we can own about 8/10 of an acre. And the land that we would trade is the city-owned parcel even further down the street at the corner of Mission Vineyard and San Juan Hollister Road. We would trade those two sites, and then we would acquire his well. We would make such modifications that are necessary to bring it onto the system, and we would allow him to use that well for agricultural purposes, provided he pays what I'm calling the commodity price, which is the actual out-of-pocket costs attributable to the energy to pump up the water and to the groundwater extraction fee, or so-called pump tax, which he would pay. So he'd pay the out-of-pocket costs for operation of the well. We would have first right, obviously, to the use of the well, and we would coordinate the pumping so that we weren't in conflict. To accomplish this it's complicated. As proposed in these business terms, there would be an initial payment toward the acquisition of the property and the well, and then subsequent annual payments. That's going to require some tricky lawyering, and the city attorney and I have been working on how we're going to accomplish that. Mr. Koch is familiar with how tricky it is, and so we will probably come back to you in a month with an indication of how far we've gotten on resolving those tricky contract issues and seek council authorization for the actual contractual language. Tonight, I am asking you to approve in concept the business terms of that transaction that are described in more detail in the agenda report. I was going to ask you tonight to approve the acquisition of an iron manganese treatment plant that would treat both well 5 and well 6 water. I told you that we had discovered that we have met the primary water quality standards, but there are levels of iron and manganese which are not regulated, other than to say we need to tell our customers that there is the potential for taste and color that would be not good customer service. And so we want to recommend that as we develop these two wells, well 5 and well 6, we also put in the iron manganese treatment plant. We have two proposals from potential vendors, and we want to take advantage of the opportunity to get a third proposal. So rather than ask you tonight to approve one of those two, we'll come back next month with a recommendation on potentially 3 proposals. And then finally, I told you that we were also subject to a regulatory order with respect to the wastewater treatment plant, where because of the high salt content in the discharge to the creek, we are being potentially fined, and the pellet softening plant was a proposed solution to that issue. So as part of the transaction with Mr. Koch, we need to move the pellet plant equipment that is now sitting
On the property that
he wants and move it to the well number 6 site. We need to evaluate whether any modifications need to be made to that equipment in light of that move. And I've also asked that our engineers evaluate the efficacy of the whole pellet plant solution. Will it solve the problem? It's a big investment. We don't want later to learn that we made a big investment that didn't solve the problem.
We've already made an investment in purchasing it.
We're purchasing it, but there is a more major investment to come to install it.
And maintain it.
Yes. And the maintenance of it as well. So we propose in this report, I've just outlined in this report, how we're going to undertake some studies to evaluate the potential of the pelletized softening plant, and we'll bring that back to you at the appropriate time. The good news is there is a strategy, and there are resources to finance the strategy. So all of these things, new well 5, well 6, and the pellet plant, when taken together, the sewer connection fees from the new subdivisions, the development agreement payment from Rancho Vista, and the bond proceeds, and the deferred fines from the state of California, can be used to help solve these problems. So we have sufficient resources, and we have a strategy and a timeline, and that concludes my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
I would only say that after listening about all of this for 3 years, to actually see something moving, this makes me giddy. Any questions?
Ed, did you ever look into what it costs to run that pellet plant for a month or a year or anything like that?
There has been that analysis. I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's exactly what we want to revisit when we bring back to you the report on the pellet plant.
Yeah. And then the other question I have as far as the deal with Mr. Koch is, I lost it now. Any city will waive sewer and water connection fees for any subsequent development of the Koch property, provided it is converted from ag to urban use within 10 years. Now, if he only...
So we wanted to give him an incentive to develop his property. We wanted to give him an incentive to develop his property.
That's at 18 acres or something like that?
Yes. It's in the industrial zone, painted purple on the general plan map.
Yeah. So if he, let's say, develops 1 acre of it, does that trigger another 10 years?
Well, it does not trigger another 10 years.
Okay.
But the waiver would be attributable to only the portion that he
developed within 10 years.
Okay.
So I have a question, and I'm glad the Bracewell man's here, about the fines per month, and that's on, I presume, our discharge out of our wastewater treatment plant now?
Yes.
And our salt...
$3,000 a month.
Our salt levels are too high, and that's usually measured by something called conductance or TES measurements, correct? Micromoles? I'm a water treatment chemist, so
specifically sodium.
Excuse me, if you're going to speak, could you step up to the...
So this is Chris Hauge, who is our licensed wastewater treatment plant operator for Bracewell Engineering.
Thank you.
Yeah, the specific issues are sodium and chloride, but they're related to TDS.
Okay.
Dissolved salts.
I just didn't want the state setting a hard level because, as you may or may not know, our incoming water, the water that we get at the faucet, varies from anywhere from 750 to 1100 conductivity, on any one given day.
Yeah.
So if the state water board said no more than 1,000 and we got 1100 coming in, that's an impossible thing to meet. You just can't do it,
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that the state water board kind of has a sliding scale where if we have 1,100 coming in, they won't let any more than 1,150 going out. That would be my recommendation.
Well, the problem is that they don't have a sliding scale.
Okay.
It is a set number.
They're the state or not?
Yeah.
So one regulatory agency, the state regulates what comes in, and a different regulatory agency regulates what goes out.
But as I've already stated, there's no magic bullet in water treatment. You know, and so if we're at 1,100 coming in out of the well, and their limit is 1,000, we automatically can't meet it. You know, it's just, you know, so we need to work with the...
That's a lot of the evaluation is to determine. So what we're doing is changing sources. So the initial evaluation of the pellet plant was for wells 1 and 2, which we're taking offline, and we now have wells 5 and 6. The quality of those wells related to the TDS and salt specifically is better, but it's still not considered salt. And so it would still need to be treated, and so we really need to do a thorough evaluation of...
I would personally like to see a complete water analysis, you know.
And one of the purposes of the study with respect to the pelletized softening plant is also to evaluate what policy changes, if any, the council might want to adopt with respect to private water softeners, for example, which contribute to the wastewater discharge problem.
Don't even speak to that.
Yeah, when we went down and looked at the, I wonder if it's still there in Valencia, the plant, they had a pellet plant down there.
Yeah, down in Valencia.
And, but that was connected to one subdivision of 300 and some homes, and they put in an ordinance, you could not have a water softener in that subdivision. And nobody seemed to have a problem with that. But I don't know, I know some people took their water softeners out a couple of years ago because they thought they were going to have soft water. So I don't know what we can do here. Excuse me.
Well, you recall that under the existing programs of the Water Resources Agency, they will pay an individual $300 to remove their private water softener.
Yes, they will.
So one of the things we want to evaluate is it appropriate to have a regulatory scheme, such as the ordinance you mentioned, no new ones, or an incentive, financial incentive to have them taken out of service?
Well, for example, the city of Hollister right now has both. You are not allowed, or it's not permitted to install a water softener into your garage in City Hollister. And also, if you have an old one from however many years ago, and you take it out, they will also... Well, so the Water Resources, County Water Resources Board will pay you the $300. So it works both ways. Or it can work both ways, is what I'm saying.
Will they pay that in San Juan, that $300?
Yes, they will. Yes, they will.
Well, then when I remodeled in San Juan in 2013, he told me, my plumber said I couldn't put one in. But I guess you could have. And I lost my $300.
The only thing you have to look at right now is with 85 and 45 home coming online, and when these people turn their faucet on and little rocks come out of it, they're going to want water softeners or something, and that's just going to add that much more salt to the system. Good point. You know, the one thing I've always complained about. The state water board, they keep continually every month we get a fine, $3,000, but they never offer to help us. They never, well, you could do this or do that. Or,
They actually have.
I was going to say, in fairness, they fine us but defer the fine.
Oh, yeah, I know that.
So we actually don't write a check for $3,000 a month, but we have a deferred fine, which will be forgiven if we use it toward an approved solution.
Well, we use about $160-some thousand of that fine money towards the purple lines for the recycled water, which they have never allowed us to use.
So they've also pointed the city to programs that where there's grants that are available, and the city hasn't been able to apply for those grants because we don't have anyone really to do that work. So just to let you know, because they've told me several times, there's programs out there, there's grants out there, and we just can't, we don't have the resources to make those.
I spend a lot of money up at the cemetery putting in a whole system of purple lines, and then found out I couldn't use the water. So,
Councilmember Bach, that's not actually a subject of this report, but is worthy of a report back to you about the strategy for the recycled water.
Because I would think your customers really wouldn't care. They're mostly 6 feet under. I get that all the time.
Oh, boy.
I'm
That's the
sorry.
only kind of people you
But I
can
got
deal
all them voters up there.
We're going to open this up for public comment if there is any.
There's Joan Cosia.
Sorry, Tony. I get it all the time.
I thought I heard Chris say we were taking wells 1 and 2 offline. We better not take well 1 off. That's our water.
No.
Well 3 hasn't been used for a long time because of its high nitrates. But in reading the possible deal with Dale Koch, I'm just extremely concerned that there might be better ways to deal with this. A new casing for well 3, has that really been looked at? Have we really talked to Jeff Catalano at the water district to see if he can help us, because he's the one that cleaned up well 1 for us many, many years ago and made it usable with, I believe, a new casing. And it's the best well that we've got as far as low salts and cleanliness of it and all that. And I'm not at all comfortable with this deal of trying to negotiate with Dale Koch, who's a very difficult negotiator. Anybody who knows him realizes that. Moving the pellet softener is a very, very expensive proposition, and I'm not sure it's the best choice. $100,000 for his well plus $15,000 a year for 10 years is $250,000 for his well, plus he still gets to use the well. I don't know if there's anything in there about maintaining the wear and tear to the motor and all that stuff of having 2 of us use that well. I don't understand why he wouldn't use well 3. He has used well 3 in the past, and for that he negotiated a fantastic deal with the city where all he paid for was the electrical. He's a tough negotiator. And it's not going to be easy. And plus, if we're both using this new well 6, there could be depletion of the aquifer from all that pressure on it. What's wrong with him just using well 3? It's got probably a better system for pumping than any of the other wells have. It just is full of nitrates. And I guess we've never been able to solve that. And I thought it could be fixed with a new casing. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that, but waive the sewer and water fees if the land is developed? I heard something about that would be an incentive for him to make an industrial property out of ag land. Or is it already an industrial? I'm not quite clear on that. We need to look into whether well 3 could be refurbished. We need to work with the water district. It was always my understanding that if we got that purple valve system finished, and if the state would allow us to use the water, that was going to get us into compliance on our effluent, because we were going to be putting the water back on the ground rather than putting it into the rivers. It's a very scary proposition to look at moving the pellet softener, if we even build the pellet softener, which was never a good idea from the beginning. We always would have been better off to get the blue valve water, which is way lower in salts than anything we'll ever have with the pellet softener. But that's a done deal. councils before any of us decided that the pellet softener was a better idea than working with the water district. And I was never comfortable with that. And I really think it's time to revisit our relationship with the water district and maybe even talk to Kurt Kurosaki again. I believe we drilled a test well on his property. Having two of our wells right across the street from each other at a location that's already been determined to be high in iron and lead, I guess, I'm not sure. It doesn't seem like a great idea.
Not high lead.
Sorry, okay. I thought you said it was for lead and
Manganese.
Manganese.
oh, manganese and iron.
Iron.
Okay.
They discolor. You'll never have lights again if you let.
Well, always correct me when I'm wrong. I don't want to be wrong.
The other thing, and I wasn't part of the negotiation, but to negotiate adequately, you need to be able to get up and leave the table, and the city is not in that position currently. And you want to add something to it?
But to continue Jolene's argument here, mainly about the blue valve water coming in from the Central Valley, just or Dinosaur Point, to be more specific. That, as I remember, and I was not part of any council, as just an interested citizen, that was about 10 years ago, and the negotiations between the city and the county water board went horribly wrong, and there was people yelling at each other and calling each other nasty names and all kinds of stuff. And so, and I don't know why that happened. Okay, but I will say that I do have a very good relationship with Jeff and Sean and everybody over there now, and I know that Jim was there before me. He also had a really good relationship with them now, and so I'm thinking maybe enough time has passed that we could open up a conversation again with them.
I think it'd be worth the effort.
Yeah. They really didn't like us 10 years ago for some reason.
No comment.
What?
No comment. Like I said, why? No comment. The only thing was on the blue valve water, the water district came up with, it was going to cost $6 million for that plant to convert it into
drinkable water. Yeah, a water treatment. You have to have a potable water treatment, you know. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
Public comment? I'm just, I'm concerned because maybe this time last year, we were talking about finishing up these wells in, by this time, I thought we'd have the pellet plant in by now. So can you explain why it's taking so long? Why isn't well 5 online right now? I thought that was going to be done in July. And why do we have to look at the pellet plant again? Is the technology changed? Is there something that we don't know about with the pellet plant because it may not work? What's changed it? Because we bought that a few years ago and that was the solution we came up to. Why is it changed now? Why are we questioning it?
We're not questioning it, but you got to make sure the throughput or the amount of volume it can handle is sufficient for the city as it is now, not as it was 5 years ago. More people.
You mean when we bought that pellet plant, we weren't planning the city was going to grow?
I have no idea. But no one's ever been able to tell me the throughput of that pellet plant. So, how can I tell you anything?
Well, I'm just wondering why we're questioning. Why is it taking so long? Because 2 years ago, my neighbor took out his water softener 2 years ago on the idea that pellet plant was going to be in production and we're going to have clean water. And it just keeps getting delayed. What's our guarantee this is going to be done by, what's the timeline we're looking at? It's October of next year? What's the guarantee it's going to be done by then? I think we have to have that guarantee. We can't just keep pushing it off. That's what you guys need to do as a city council. You need to guarantee us it's going to be done by October.
Well, I'm not an engineer. We hire Bracewell. They've got a great reputation.
Representatives.
Yeah, I know, and that's why we're having these hearings, and that's why we're getting it. And we are, I've sat on this board for 3 years, and it seems like at least you can see the end of the tunnel. Before it was just a
I
tunnel.
was seeing at the end of the tunnel last year, at this time last year, I was seeing the end. We were being told that the end was coming last year, but now we're being told now it's going to be another year.
I think we were told wrong by I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, the previous city manager. Just didn't get things done. Put it that way.
That's what we need to ask our acting city manager or the next city manager. That's the part of you need to get this done by next year.
So, Mayor, members of the council, just to remind you of the sequence, first well 2 will come online. It is both wells, well 5, replacing well 2, needs to come online, and we need to acquire and develop well 6. Both wells are actually developed, they've been tested, they're ready to go. We need the plumbing that connects them to the city's distribution system, and we need the plumbing that connects them to the iron manganese treatment plant that we need to acquire. We have assured the state, no guarantees, we've assured the state in order so they would not fine us further, that we will have that accomplished by the spring. Well 6, I think, can be done by the end of the summer, no later than October. The pellet plant is the third in sequence. It will not come online at the same time as the well 6 would come online into the water distribution system. And my suggestion is that we need to thoroughly evaluate whether or not the installation of pellet plant will solve the problem. Not just check the box, get it done, but will it actually accomplish something?
It doesn't. What if we look at the pellet plant again and
Got
say...
$1 million worth of scrap.
Well, no, it's not scrap, actually, because it has value, and some of the individuals who've been named today have expressed interest in it, that we don't want it.
So, but what would our solution be?
We don't know at this point.
If the pellet plant proved ineffective?
Maybe we need a different kind of pellet plant. Maybe we need a larger pellet plant with more capacity. In any event, it needs to be moved because well number 3, for which it was designed, has been abandoned.
And I will tell you this, that several years ago now, it was stated, Bracewell, in fact, I believe, stated it was going to cost $14,000 a month to run that pellet plant. And at that time, it was about $14,000 a month, and you got 700 connections. That's a little expensive, you know. Now, I don't, in Valencia, we didn't really get into that part, but it didn't seem like it was going to cost anywhere near that kind of money to run that plant. So, yeah, you have to come up with how much is it going to cost to get it up and running, and how much is it going to cost every month. And it's just like this iron manganese thing. How much is it going to cost every month to run that thing? You know, to clean the iron and manganese out of it, or whatever it is. I didn't know we had a problem like that, but...
The new world.
Yeah, so Bob, you're right, it's on us. When I got elected, I've also been on the council for 3 years. I would have told you that by the end of that first year, this would have all been resolved. This has been the biggest open sore in the community, and it has been an utter failure on our part, in my opinion. And it doesn't sound like you're disagreeing. I think it's an utter failure. I think it's an utter failure of this body to get this done. And we have relied on staff for far too much without questioning it adequately, in my opinion. And we've done things so far out of sequence, the process has been so broken, in my opinion. I feel comfortable with where we are today, that we actually have a process that will get us to a solution. We have the funding to do what we need to do. Guarantees? I'm not giving any guarantees.
Well, what I recommend is I ask your acting city manager to give you a timeline.
We have. It's done, right here.
When certain things are going to be done each month.
Yes, Bob, it's on paper right here.
There is a timeline.
Is it on by a monthly basis? And so by next month, you should say, okay, this is done if he's got,
No, it's not a Gantt chart. It's,
well, why can't you pick a chart out of it and have certain goals for each month? Because it seems like last year, it was going to be done by, it's going to be done by now, it should have been done. But was there any follow-up as we went along? Well, has this progressed? Have you gotten to this point? Have you gotten to this point?
Yes. Not adequately followed up, obviously.
Mr. Mayor?
yes.
May I just follow up with one thing? Ed Hughes just mentioned that well 3 has been abandoned, and...
As a municipal supply well.
Yeah, but I would just like the council to maybe instruct staff to take one more look with Bracewell at well 3, at leaving the pellet softener where it is, and see if there is any possibility for doing that, because the costs associated with that are so much less, I think, if there's any possibility of refurbishing well 3, than this deal with Coke. That's all I am asking, that it at least be considered, unless there's some reason that I'm unaware of why it could never be considered. Because as far as I know, that's a working well, it has lots of water, it has a nitrate problem that was thought to be associated with the sewer from...
Jolene, we've already done this. We've been through it. What you're asking has been done.
It's been...
It has been done.
Looked at.
It absolutely has been done.
Because I've never heard it discussed.
I'm sorry. It has been discussed here.
Okay.
It's been discussed, and it has been looked into.
Thank you.
Any other comment on this before we need a motion on this?
So Mayor, we're recommending that we had 3 recommendations. First is that you approve in concept the business terms described for the acquisition of well number 6. Recommendation number 2 will be deferred until the next meeting. And third, that you approve our plan to evaluate the installation of the softening plant.
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Any discussion? Call for the question.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Marciano?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Yes.
Mayor West?
Yep.
All members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes unanimously.
All right, next item, approve job specification and salary for position of Assistant City Manager. Yep.
Mayor and Council, you'll recall that at an earlier meeting I had asked you to approve a position of a new department head called Public Works and Utilities Director. I started my presentation by suggesting that the city manager needs help, that there needs to be in the office another professional on-board full-time staff person. We already have a title for Community Development Director. I was proposing the addition of a Public Works Director. By having those 2 choices, your next city manager will have the ability then to decide where he or she's interests lie, where their expertise lie, where they need the most help in either community development or public works. At the time, you had some discussion about the extent to which that new department head position might serve as an acting city manager from time to time. In light of the recent recruitment for city manager, I'm recommending that we create a new position called Assistant City Manager, not just Acting City Manager, but Assistant City Manager, who would have the additional responsibilities of Public Works that we talked about before. If you authorize this new position, as recommended in this paper, then I'll be in a position to appoint somebody to that position, and you then might subsequently have the opportunity to appoint that individual as the next full-time city manager.
Any question?
No?
Open to the public? Do we have any cards?
I'm just curious, it just strikes my curiosity here, because I noticed down in your closed session, and you're appointing an assistant city manager. So have you already interviewed for this position? You're going to approve now?
Yeah.
don't quite understand the process here.
So the process is described in the second page of the staff report under next steps. This municipal code actually provides that before the city manager can appoint a department head or assistant, he or she must first present it to the city council in closed session for review. That's section 2.2.115 of the municipal code. So I do have an individual in mind, and I intend, if this position is fully authorized, to present that individual to the council in closed session and then subsequently make the appointment.
Well, so I noticed that you're not, in closed session, you're not appointing the city manager.
Correct.
So does this mean that we haven't found a candidate for the city manager position, and that we're going to appoint one of the candidates to be interviewed for the assistant city manager position?
Correct.
Okay. Well, I don't know. This doesn't make real good sense to me, but...
So just as a clarification, they're not going to be doing the appointment in closed session. That's not permitted. The city manager is going to make the appointment then later.
Yes.
Let's just be upfront with the public what you're doing here.
We are.
Okay.
Just give us a couple of minutes, Bob.
Okay.
It'll all become clear.
Okay.
I would suggest that we have the closed session now, that we make the approval, and then we enter the closed session immediately so that we can then, rather than waiting until everyone leaves, to introduce the candidate.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I thought Deborah said we didn't need a closed session.
I said that you can't make the appointment. Your
we don't.
task in the closed session is to give direction to the city manager.
Okay. And we do that in closed session?
Yes.
Correct. All right, we still have a question on the...
Right, so
I need a motion.
I move to approve the job specification for assistant city manager.
And the second part of that?
Second.
Did you, on the pellet plant, you want to go with that also, or?
We're done with the pellet plant stuff.
No, but there's a thing in there about evaluating it. Where was it?
Oh, no, that was...
never mind.
We're on to...
Never mind.
We're past that.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Call for the question?
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Martirana?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVries?
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman?
Yes.
Mayor West?
Yep. Now we're going to close session. We leaving? session. We have an announcement for the city manager. I love technology.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, in accordance with the municipal code, I've had the opportunity to review with you in closed session the appointment of the assistant city manager which position you just recently authorized. I'm pleased to announce the appointment of Ms. Michelle LaForge as the assistant city manager and public works utilities director. Ms. LaForge is here, and she ought to come up to the lectern and introduce herself, but she lives in the community. She owns property in the city of San Juan Bautista. She has extensive executive management experience in the private sector, over 20 years in the high-tech industry, and most recently in the food production industry. She has extensive corporate experience in logistics and supply chain management, and recently with water and wastewater issues from the corporate perspective when she worked for a major food processor in the Northwest. She has worked for Sun Edison Semiconductor, Applied Materials, Johnson & Johnson, and most recently for Chobani. She is a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy and served as a helicopter pilot in the first Gulf War. She will begin on January the 2nd, and some of the issues we've already discussed tonight will be in her portfolio, and so we're looking forward to working with Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle, can you stand up? And I'm going to have Councilman Moriarty, who did the negotiation with you as mayor, read the...
I have a little, something I'd like to read. This will probably help Bob with some of his questions.
And God knows Bob needs help.
So the council is very pleased with the appointment of Michelle LaForge to the newly created position of assistant city manager. The council and I talked with Michelle as part of the city manager recruitment process, and we were very impressed with her experience and capabilities as a leader in the private sector. Because the current interim city manager will be leaving in a few months, this appointment of Michelle LaForge will give her the opportunity to gain valuable background experience in city government that will make her an outstanding candidate for the appointment of city manager. Ed Tweez has told us that he intends to reduce his hours over the next few months and will leave as interim city manager no later than May of 2018. The council and I see that period as a great opportunity for Michelle to gain public sector experience, drive progress on critical projects, and provide a smooth transition. The City Council is very excited to work with Ed and Michelle during this transition. Ed told us, quote, "The city manager needs help," unquote. Now he has it, and the city has a clear leadership path into the future. So welcome, Michelle. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that warm welcome, council members and the public. And I'll be here and listening and under the tutelage of Ed, and I hope to make a big difference. That's why I put my name in the hat, and I'm very pleased that I'm able to do this for the community.
Thank you.
All right. Next item. Next item is the removal of planning commission.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry.
I would like some clarification.
Yes.
I have a question. As far as what is on the agenda and the closed session was agendized at the end of the meeting, is it legal to move that up around the agenda when you've already approved the agenda?
Yes, it's at the council's discretion. It's at the council's discretion to move items around on the agenda.
You do it all the time?
Any other question on that? All right, the next item is the removal of planning commissioner John Hopper.
It's to set a date, not for the removal. It's to set a date for a hearing.
For a hearing. Can you describe first the process here? I think this is what we're looking for, is a little clarity on what the process should be, and then how we move forward.
The planning commissioners serve at the discretion of the city council, and so you have the authority to remove a planning commissioner. Under your city code, you can either do it without cause. In that case, there would be no reason set forth for the removal. You took a vote on that, and you decided that you didn't want to do it without cause. So now the matter is being set for possible agendizement of a public hearing for the removal of the planning commissioner. And what that would require is, under the tenets of due process, you have to give somebody an opportunity to clear their name or give them what we call legally a liberty hearing. So this would be an opportunity for the charges or the reasons for removal of a planning commissioner to be given to that planning commissioner, and then he can come forward with the reasons why that's not true or other reasons that might clear his name. And then after that, the city council could then take a vote to remove that planning commissioner.
Is this done at a regularly scheduled planning commission?
Yes, an open session at a regular meeting.
It's a council meeting.
Council meeting, yeah.
Right, so what I'm asking is that we schedule that hearing for our next city council meeting.
January 11th.
16th.
16th.
Wait a second.
No, as we table the matter, as you know, I've been working with you, the council, diligently on developing a new method of selecting planning commissioners, which I think is a better course than just kicking this person off who's been doing a very good job as a planning commissioner. We have several letters from people in the public who have attested it does a good job, people who have been planning commissioners in other cities. We have a letter from Mr. Hopper himself. He did ask me to read it, so begging your pardon, I'd like to do so. Honorable members of the City Council, I write this letter to address the ongoing effort to remove me from the Planning Commission. It is evident there are some strong feelings and perceptions at play here. I certainly have my observations as to why this is occurring, and of course there are some on the Council who have drawn their own conclusions. I do not feel the continued action is warranted, particularly that it seems the issues are months old and obviously have my attention and that of the public. I'm not sure what good can come of this. Excuse me. I do not want the issues to continue to burden the city, drain legal dollars from taxpayers, and in the words of one city council member, continue a non-productive battle of he said, she said. The issue drains upon my health and certainly takes away from what otherwise could be a productive time on the council as well. I do not wish to see this matter to continue to bring about such negative energy. This action also directly attacks and defames my character. Some members of the council have contacted me directly, and I think the issues of concern have been well explained on both sides and at least better understood. I have also spoken to numerous members of the public who have reached out to me as well. I would respectfully ask that we come to some better understanding and reflection upon what has transpired and work to move forward. I've already apologized in public for any action and perceptions of any appropriate behavior on my part. Respectfully, John D. Hopper. And so I might add that I also agree that it's just going to be a lot of negative energy on this council. It's going to take a lot of time, effort. You know, we have a lot of problems to solve, and this is not a problem that needs solving. It really isn't. We just let them be on the Planning Commission. Planning Commission is doing a very good job. Let it go.
Do you have a motion on the table?
Yes.
Do we have a second on that? I'll second that for this discussion. Is there anything from the public that want to be talking about that?
I think that you have to take into consideration that you as a volunteer, so you did volunteer to get elected, you did volunteer to be appointed, you have become a public figure. And so there comes expectations of the community as representatives of the city on certain conduct. And it isn't only how you behave when you're not at a meeting, but also as how you behave when you are in a meeting. And so you can't differentiate the two. What behavior or decision-making or judgment is done not at a meeting certainly has a bearing on what your capabilities or what your judgment and thinking is when you're making decisions that certainly affect the whole community. And I think that those are the things that need to be taken into consideration. Overstepping your bounds, grandstanding, self-serving, self-righteous declaration at a meeting was totally out of line. And if that is the way that people or representatives think, that is not how I want to be represented. And so I think you guys have to think about this as public figures, what is expected of you, and you should be held at higher expectations. And therefore, always mindful of how you behave, how you come to a meeting, and what you do at a meeting, and what you do in public.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Same comment I had last time that it came up, except for last time you had no cause. So I would like to know what the cause is and what is definitely...
That's why we'll be having the hearing.
So you're going to have a hearing to talk about the cause of removing
Yes, ma'am.
him? Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, for the record, we should reflect that we also received communication that I think has been made available to the council from Ms. Kara Vonk.
I have a copy of that, yes. Any other comments? I'm going to vote for this because the last time it was without cause, and there was a lot of accusations flying around. And I want to, if there is reason, I want to hear it. So I would second that. I think we need a vote.
Councilmember Bach?
Yes.
Councilmember Martirano?
Aye.
Councilmember DeVries?
No.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
No.
Mayor West?
Yes.
So that's a 3-2.
3-2. So we're going to have that on the 16th. That will be agendized.
It's a very long meeting, by the way.
Pardon?
It will be a very long meeting.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. But we're all volunteers, we know that. All right, discussion item number 7, development impact fees.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, James Walgren, our contract community development director, will be presenting the report. This is in response to your request that we tell you what it would take in time and money to update the development impact fees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tweez. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, this is a discussion item tonight to get direction from the City Council as to how to move forward. As Council is aware, the current city development impact fees were updated in 2013, and those fees need to be based on quantifiable growth projections, and those are typically based on the general plan. The city's general plan was updated in 2015. It's a 20-year plan, so that's a good basis for those growth projections. It has to be on the future sort of net increase impact on facilities, whether that be parks or roads or schools and that type of thing. Development impact fees can't be used for today's needs, park repairs, street maintenance, and that kind of thing. For evaluation purposes, we do have a very recent study that was just adopted by the County of San Benito with very similar physical conditions and demographics. That's illustrated in the attached chart. So you can see overall the fees are relatively comparable and seem to be fairly current in the city of San Juan Bautista. So there doesn't seem to be an urgent need at this time to do a comprehensive and relatively expensive nexus report to update these fees. We have identified certain fees, however, public safety fee, park and lieu fee, and IT facilities impact fees that could more easily be updated without going through a comprehensive consultant report. The report that the county used was based on financial services consultants, Wildan and Associates, and was in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. So short of that, the city manager and myself do believe we could bring the public safety, park and an IT impact fee analysis back to the council, and we would plan to do that as part of the mid-budget review early next year. And that's also when we would be bringing to the council an application user fee evaluation for things like conditional use permits, tentative maps, and those kinds of application fees that are outside of development impact fees. The one fee that is a little bit more complicated to determine and would require some consultant dollars, traffic engineering consultant dollars, is the traffic impact mitigation fee. At this point, we would suggest that that be considered for budgeting as part of the fiscal year 2019 budget. It could certainly happen sooner if council so desired, but given the effort that would be and the expense that would need to be done for that one, we were recommending that put out until the fiscal year budget is determined. So with that, we will be looking at the ones that we can do internally more quickly, and then we're looking for city council direction on the traffic impact fee.
I do have a question about the traffic impact fee. Obviously, the county is charging about 6 or 7 times more than what we are. And also right now, we're having a lot of, how can I describe it, extra projects that we need to pick. You know, there's certain state taxes on the gasoline and stuff. It's SB1, isn't that the number? Yeah, the SB1 fees that we're going to be getting. And so it just seems to me that there's a lot going on there, and this makes it even, I'm not trying not to talk myself out of it here, but it just adds another layer of complexity onto it. So I do think we need to study this a little bit and figure out how to make it so there are traffic issues. If you were to try and drive to Hollister at like 4:30 this afternoon, you wouldn't be able to make it back in time for right now. You know, it's just pretty bad. Of course, that's going to be addressed by the 156 supposedly improvement, and but at the same time, there's other issues with the most of it is in the county, but it affects us because people. We've had this council has received many complaints about people using apps like Waze, which is a Google-owned app that tells you where to go, to how to get around traffic the easiest, and they tear up the Alameda to where the hotel is and turn left there and tear down that road in front of the RV park and such, and sometimes if they can, and many times they can't because it's really bumper-to-bumper traffic, but they're going as fast as they can, 50, 60 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. So creating some unsafe conditions on that small 2-lane road. So that's why I would think that we need to do that and see if there's anything we can do to somehow improve those roads.
And I think that is one that is worth looking into more carefully. A couple of factors, though, on that as we get into this. So the fee does jump out that the county is significantly higher than the cities. This was based on zones that have been created by the Council of Governments for San Benito County. Zone 1, that the city of San Juan Bautista in, is the north end, and that fee has been established by COG at about $2,000. Zone 2 is the sort of greater Hollister area, and that has the larger fee. That's $13,000 is the fee that COG just identified in their study. And then Zone 3 is all of the South County, which again is a much less fee. So the fees are structured in the county to be at different intensities based on traffic. But the other thing is that when you look at current traffic or current road conditions, the fee will have to be based on the anticipated increase in population over the next 20 years. So that may not be, the 2,000 trips that are currently occurring. There may be a net increase of 200 to 300 trips. So that's what that impact fee would be based on. The contribution to that impact.
Okay, but so what I was wondering is, can we get any money to improve San Juan Road? Isn't that San Juan Road right in front of the Mission RV Park? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So is there any way of getting money because there's going to be a new housing development out there. That's certainly going to add to the traffic. There's going to be a new transportation trucking warehouse that's certainly going to add to the traffic. And it's already an impacted road, a road that's not in very good condition. It needs widening and improving, in my opinion. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I have opinions on width of roads. So.
The short answer is yes, that's what the traffic impact fee would be. But you would have to identify the project, and it would have to be a nexus connection to the increase in population.
I thought I just
about increase in impact on the circulation system.
I thought I just laid it out pretty clear. You know, with the trucking guy going in and the new homes going in, there's going to be a lot more traffic on that road, in addition to what Waze already shoves onto there. So, you know.
Chris? John, I think one of the issues that we have had forever is that we're not looking far enough into the future when we're working on this stuff. So we have no long-term infrastructure replacement plan for roads, sewer, water, really much of anything. We're very proud of ourselves for having created a few sinking funds, but they're just scratching the surface. And one of my questions is how much of these, to me, that's where we have to start, is we have to start with getting the scope of some of these the funding requirements that we need to meet, because that's going to then justify the impact fees. And it's all well and good to look at the impact fees compared to the county, but I'm more interested in what should be the timetable for replacement of all the water lines in town, and can we use fire protection is a good example. We've got those wharf hydrants all over town. They're completely substandard. There's no way.
But impact fees won't affect that.
Well, why not? If that is something that needs to be upgraded and done, and I'm just asking. I don't know the answer, but I think we're not thinking big picture. We're not thinking broad enough, and we look at this stuff.
And I may not understand it, but we need to fix a lot of things in this town for the people that are already living in this town, and that can't be from impact fees.
That's right.
No, but if the water system that's serving everybody, not just the water delivery, but the fire protection, aspect of it. I don't know. Yeah. And I'm just throwing that out as an example.
So this is a couple of things in terms of timing, and that's what I meant to respond to about Old San Juan Road. Is typically a city would have a 5-year capital improvement plan, and that's updated annually, and it's a 5-year plan for infrastructure, sewer, water, intersections, road work. And so that's the plan you base that budgeting on.
Right.
But the development impact fee nexus connection is just on that growth over a 5 or 10 year period that you're anticipating. Okay. And that is how often these development impact fee reports are typically updated about every 5 to 10 years. So you're looking within that 10-year window.
Really, we're talking about two different things.
Yeah, but if we were just to use that San Juan Road as an example, if we were to improve it, make it have a lot less potholes, widen it a little bit, can't we not say that that's because of increased traffic, that it needs those improvements? Yet it's going to affect the new people, and it's also going to affect the old people who drive on it.
In general, the answer to your question is, part of your answer is yes, part is no. To improve it, no, you cannot charge development impact fees to repair existing facilities. You can charge development impact fees to widen the street if the development that generates traffic requires a larger capacity roadway system. You typically find that out by looking at your circulation element of the general plan. And to Councilmember Martorano's point, I dare you to find it in our general plan.
And I remember when I first came on this council about a year ago, one of the first things I asked was for a complete plan of the infrastructure in the ground and such. And a study to show where we are, where we can go, and what we can do. And I was told, well, that's nice, John, but that's $100,000 survey, so go away, you know. I'm going to ask for it again, maybe not a $100,000 survey, but 15 or 20,000. We need to know what needs to be upgraded. You just can't do things willy-nilly. You got to have a plan.
Yeah. No, I think I agree 100%. I think that that's an example of where we have not, as a body, we've been too trusting of staff and not pursued some of these questions independently and pushed and really set, the expectations clearly. There is a 5-year, to your point, there is a 5-year plan. I sat in this room with the city manager, Jolene was there, and with a variety of people from the public. We met 2 or 3 times. I don't know if anything on that plan has ever been accomplished, because it's never been discussed since.
And as you said, there are 2 different points. So that's typically what you establish your budgeting based on.
Yeah.
Whether it's a sewer main upgrade or an intersection improvement, and it's X million of dollars. And then the nexus fee, the development impact fee, is just that percentage of that fee that you're adding to that burden. But the other part of it is budgeting. Is it coming out of another fund? Is it coming out of the general fund? Is it coming out of fees for service or something?
I think this is where we need to call Mr. Lara and put him to work. Israel is one of our other city manager applicants.
Well,
as a young man who's been very effective at generating grant dollars.
That was always my impression, was that you cannot use impact fees, quote unquote, repay San Juan Hollister Road. You can't.
Right, it could
But
contribute
if
a
you want,
proportion.
like he said, if you want to widen it, you can apply some of those fees to that part of it. But the rest of it has to come out of our general fund.
Would we have to set up a ratio? Because it's obvious if you widen the road, you're going to repave the middle of it too. I mean, it's and so I would, using creative accounting, just sneak that in under that,
The problem is if we try to sneak things in to generate revenue, we get sued.
And one thing I'm curious about is at one time, half of that road was the county's. The one on the south side. Maybe the city boundaries have changed, but I know when they were putting in the infrastructure, sewer lines and all that, they got in trouble with the county because they didn't get permission from the county to put that trench on the county side of the road.
Is that right?
So, well, you're not going to get any money out of the county to fix it.
No. My inclination would be to focus less on the impact fees, but creating more of the sinking fund and the budgeting the longer term projects. But not that these aren't important. Obviously, this is important, but with the ones that low-hanging fruit, exactly.
Yeah, the ones you cited, we can bring those back at a relatively reasonable cost. Is that correct?
That we could do internally, we'll be bringing this back early next year with the mid-budget review.
The IT fund and what were the other 2?
Fire and law and parks and
parks. Yeah.
And then we can do that in a reasonable budget. I'm looking at Ed to see if Ed is nodding.
Yes. And you did say that the traffic impact fee would have to be, the study would have to be done.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
We're recommending that a technical study be done for that one. It's a little more complicated, and how the current fee was developed is a little bit less clear, so we'd want to start with a traffic engineering firm on that one.
So can you use impact fees for something like that?
No.
No?
Well, under the law, you can use 5% of the available revenues in an impact fee fund for the administration and updating of the impact fee.
Oh, okay.
So 5% of however many impact fees there are, have to do the math.
Well, all told, the current balances of all of the impact fees that are listed on the chart is a little over $100,000. So 5% of that is insufficient to do the kind of traffic engineering. And it's not just the analytical work of connecting the nexus, but it's connecting it to what? To a list of projects needed to meet the growth of this community without adversely impacting the existing community. That's the challenge. The existing community is living with what it lives with. We don't want to get worse. The extent it would get worse is the extent to which we can charge new development to fix it.
Well, and the current city general plan doesn't supports almost no additional growth at this point through 2035. Yeah. So you're talking about a revision to even to get any more revenue out of it.
But you know, Chris, that priority list, that I'm trying to remember, we came up with a list of the different streets. And Fifth Street, the short part of Fifth Street was the number one.
5 years ago, when I moved here.
As far as I know, we have $270,000+ sitting in COG, waiting for us to come up with a plan, and then and the previous city manager was going to go ahead and do it, and then I mentioned to him that, wait, this, I believe it's a water line underneath that street. There's only like a 2-inch, and it's been in there since 1919 or something, I don't know. But so that was part of the, had to get money in the water enterprise fund to replace that line and then repave it with the money from COG. I don't know how much that would cost.
A little far off the field.
Off the field now. I think that if you want to talk about the capital improvement projects, that you should set that for a hearing.
Well, I think we've got to separate the in-lieu fees from the impact fee, development fees from budget.
Exactly.
Okay, we need a motion on this?
Well,
we got more.
so we're not asking you to make a motion, we're asking for direction. Does the council wish us to pursue the low-hanging fruit, the 3 development impact fees, which we think we can do at the staff level? And if you wish to pursue development impact fees for the other more complex matters, we're recommending that you consider that as part of the budget, because that's going to require the appropriation of dollars to do the work. And you need to evaluate that in the context of all the other priorities, including some that have just been mentioned.
Okay, then, I move that we...
we have public comment.
Public comment, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't need a motion.
I think some of you mentioned on the traffic impact fee, I wouldn't waste your money on traffic impact fees, because where are you going to build new roads at in San Juan? And do you really want to widen and smooth out San Juan Road? You have to put speed bumps on it then to slow people down, because then you get complaints, people speeding out there too much. But there's no place to spend traffic impact fees because there's no new roads to build in San Juan.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other cards? Nothing? Okay. What's the direction of the committee, of the council?
My direction would be to do exactly as the city manager recommended, or articulated among them.
Yeah, the low-hanging fruit, and we'll look at the other when we get to budget. All right? Agree. All right. Number cannabis. Oh, God. Jesus Christ.
Do we have anything to report at this point?
We could do timer. What's next?
Okay. Not sure what the timeline is. I guess we took a lot of great input at the public meeting, and we've since met and been rolling that feedback into the draft ordinance, and I think we're looking to bring that back to the Planning Commission in January in hopes of presenting a final version to the council in February or March.
That's right.
So that is what I guess that would be the update.
Can you explain rolling?
Pardon me?
Can you explain rolling?
Rolling?
I'm not, I'm sorry.
Good joke.
Sorry. It sounds like you know more about it than I do, Bob.
Yeah, maybe you'll have to explain it.
They actually make a little handheld machine you can roll.
God. Okay.
Okay, moving on to comments.
Public comment?
Oh, you
Well,
want,
you know I have something to say.
oh, yeah, well,
Every single time. I'm pretty consistent like that. Thank you very much to the ad hoc committee for all of your work. I really appreciate the care that you're taking in creating this potential for our business, for our town. When I sent you an email tonight, meaning all the city council members, tried to CC Victor, but I didn't have the right email for him, just talking about the petition in support of safe access cannabis in San Juan Bautista that's been circulating online. And it has about 55 supporters as of today. There's also a poll that's on the What's Going On San Juan Bautista Facebook group. There's 4 responses. The question was, what is your opinion about cannabis businesses to be permitted in San Juan Bautista? The first response is, everyone else has a business, why not San Juan Bautista? Keep business local. 26 people were in favor of this. Safe access should be a patient's right. 25 people. I'm not in favor of it at all. 21 people responded. And why keep medicines from patients and give millions to big pharma? Let's just save the patient money and allow access to be better and safer meds. 2 people. So just wanted to keep you informed on what the conversations are amongst your constituents regarding the general opinion about this topic in the town. Also, our neighbors in the city of Hollister still don't really have their act together. And I just want to come back to the fact that San Juan Bautista is in a unique opportunity when it comes to cannabis because we do not have any illegal operations in our town that we have to convert into a legal business. We would be starting from scratch, which puts us ahead to many other, especially the county, because they have, many cannabis, facilities that have been operating for the past number of years without regulation, and they've had a huge amount of effort and money spent on trying to create code and then enforcing that code. And we're not in that space as a city. So I think that I just want to keep encouraging you, Mr. Mayor, to keep an open mind.
my mind is completely open.
And to learn, and maybe if it's uncomfortable and if it's annoying, I understand that it's very new concept as far as business is concerned in this town, but with, I think, thoughtful and careful regulation, that it can be something that can drastically benefit not only public health in San Juan Bautista, but also the economy as well.
Well, I can only say that the work of our subcommittee and the work of Victor Gomez is enlightened.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you also who attended and then made comments as well. Thank you, Mr. Bach, for your comments. I think that it's really important that we just continue the conversation openly and not trying to take one side or another, because everybody's concerns deserve to be addressed no matter what they are. So I just wanted to speak that tonight, and thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to comments. Council. John, do you have a comment?
We've covered a lot tonight, so I thank you, Council, for a productive meeting. And then I'd just like to address this to everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to city staff, constituents, and everybody else out there.
Tony?
I was going to say, I don't want to go along with Mr. Trump. Happy holidays. Other than that, no comment.
And I want to say thank you again for making me mayor. It's a double-edged sword. Happy holidays to everyone.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I actually have two substantive things that I wanted to bring up during this portion of the agenda. The first is that it's come to my attention, and my knowledge of this is presumptuous at best, but from what I understand, and the punchline to this, by the way, is that I'm going to ask whether the council agrees that we should direct staff, specifically the city attorney, to look into this further. But it's my understanding that in 1977, about just under $20 million was borrowed from the federal government to do something called the San Felipe project. And that $20 million was borrowed in 1977 to be paid back by the constituents of Hollister, San Juan Bautista, and San Benito County as a portion of our regular water bills. According to what has been provided to me, it appears as if that indebtedness should expire this month. So the question is, query whether we, and I don't think even City of Hollister is hip to this, but can we, the citizens of San Juan Bautista, say, okay, starting January 18, our water bills are going down, not up, because we don't have to pay for this $20 million loan from the feds for the San Felipe project. It's an interesting question. So if you agree, I can hand this over to Deborah and she can look into it.
Yes, please. I think somebody ought to figure that out. I didn't agree with that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
This is comments, not discussion.
Comments.
Yeah, what was represented to me is that there's some component in our bill that goes to that. I don't know how much or if that's true or anything, but if we could do something enough to reduce the water bill, it seems like a good thing. Secondly, I mentioned this to the city manager, but it also has come to my attention that the small parking lot that I previously thought was overflow for the Posada, back when Ralph developed that property, there may be an opportunity for the city to work a deal, quote unquote, with the current owner.
Great.
In order to gain, 10, 15 spots in what I think is a prime location right in the middle of town. So again, if the council agrees, then query whether it would make sense to instruct our city manager to pursue that opportunity to see if there's anything worth talking about there.
That's also a good idea.
Do you remember that, Ed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Subject, I'm not familiar with the opportunity.
That's it.
Chris?
I just wanted to thank all of you for a tumultuous year, but I appreciate all of your support and help and hard work. It was a tough year, but
Unique year.
we got through it. I got through it, and I'm happy to pass the torch. Thank you very much, each of you. I appreciate it.
City manager.
Mayor and members of the council, I just wanted to review some of the items that we're going to be bringing to you on the January 16th council meeting. In addition to the item you added tonight regarding the planning commissioner, as I previously advised you, it's our intent to bring you the mid-year budget review. That will require, I anticipate a presentation and some council discussion as to the new format and understanding of the budget we're presenting. I've also described this to you and others as Rancho Vista Night at City Hall. That's the night that we will prepare our comprehensive report on the Rancho Vista subdivision that will include discussion about the lot configuration, an amendment to the development agreement, the approval of the reimbursement agreement with Meritage Homes, and other matters. Mr. Walgren mentioned that we intend to bring back to you recommendations for increasing or revising fees for the planning and building functions, and to the extent we can, impact fees. Each of those are subject to different statutes that have notice requirements, and I want to make sure that we can meet the notice requirements, but it's our intent to bring those back on January the 16th. Tonight you asked me to review and to report back on parking enforcement. I think I can bring that back to you next meeting. I also mentioned that it was worth a discussion about recycled water. I do not anticipate being able to bring that back to you on January the 16th. There was also discussion about special events, and in light of the agenda, I don't think I'll be able to bring that one back to you on January the 16th. But I wanted to let you know the upcoming agenda items.
I would suggest you do triage on that. Whatever you needs to be done. If you put it off, that's going to be